Part 1. The night everything broke. Rain hammered the roof like it was trying to warn him. Daniel stood by the kitchen window, his reflection fractured by rivulets of water racing down the glass. Behind him, the clock ticked toward midnight. The house was still, too still, except for the faint hum of the refrigerator and the occasional thunder rolling from the hills. He'd set 2 plates for dinner. Hers still sat untouched. The lasagna was cold now, congealed under the soft glow of the pendant light. He'd been staring at it for nearly an hour, waiting for the sound of tires crunching on the driveway, waiting for her key in the door, waiting for something that would mean his world wasn't collapsing the way he suspected it was. His phone buzzed. "Don't wait up. Staying with Mom tonight. No, love you." No explanation, just that. He read it again, the words searing into him. It wasn't the message that broke him. It was the confirmation of what he'd known for months but refused to accept. The affair. He'd seen the signs, the late nights, the new perfume, the way she started laughing at her phone like a teenager. But he'd told himself it was stress, that Sarah was just reconnecting with old friends from work, that after 20 years of marriage, she deserved to rediscover herself. That was the lie he'd wrapped himself in. Now, standing in the kitchen with rain washing the world clean outside, Daniel realized nothing would ever wash this from him. When the front door finally opened, it was nearly 2 a.m. She came in quietly, her heels dangling from her hand, hair damp and eyes wide when she saw him standing there. "Dan," she said softly, her voice trembling. "Didn't expect you to still be up." He didn't speak at first. He just stared, searching her face for remorse. "Where were you?" he asked. She hesitated, her throat working as if she had to swallow the lie before speaking. "At Mom's. I told you." "Right," he said, voice low, tired. And her address changed to James Whitmore's apartment. The name dropped like a bomb between them. Her eyes went blank. The silence stretched, a fragile, deadly thread. "You went through my phone." "I didn't have to. He called our house last week by mistake." Her lips parted slightly, as if to protest, but then she stopped. "'Cause there was no defense." Daniel's hands shook as he spoke, each word feeling like it was being torn from his chest. "How long?" 6 months, she whispered. He closed his eyes. The number was a knife. 6 months of pretending. 6 months of watching her smile across the table at him while she belonged to someone else. "Was it worth it?" he asked quietly. She turned away, tears streaming down her face. "I didn't plan it, Dan. I didn't mean for it to happen. You've been distant. Ever since the company downsized, you're not the same. I felt invisible." He almost laughed, a hollow, bitter sound. "So you fixed it by making me disappear completely?" When she finally looked back at him, her face was pale, streaked with guilt and confusion. "I'm sorry." But apologies meant nothing now. The next morning she was gone. A note sat on the kitchen counter. Short, neat handwriting that used to write love letters but now wrote exits. "I need time. Please don't make this harder." By the end of the week she'd moved out. The house that once echoed with laughter and footsteps became a museum of ghosts. Every corner whispered of what used to be. Her coffee mug on the counter, the scent of her shampoo lingering on the pillow, the picture of them with their 2 kids smiling on a summer vacation years ago. Ethan and Lily. They were everything to him. But when Sarah filed for divorce, they chose her. He'd told himself it was natural. Kids needed their mother. But the truth hit harder when they stopped visiting as often, when their texts grew shorter, when "I'm busy" became the only thing they seemed to have time for. They didn't see what he saw. The betrayal, the manipulation, the slow unraveling of a woman who'd rewritten history to justify what she'd done. To them, she was the hurt one, the one who'd escaped. To him, she was the reason everything fell apart. He didn't blame the kids at first. They were young, angry, and confused. But as years passed, that anger hardened into resentment. They saw him as cold, bitter, unwilling to move on. And maybe he was. He learned to live quietly. Mornings started with black coffee and ended with silence. The house remained half lived in, half forgotten. He fixed broken hinges, repainted walls, replaced the fence, not for anyone else, but because it gave him something to fix when everything else was beyond repair. 5 years later, his ex-wife married James Whitmore. He found out through social media, a photo of them on a beach, smiling like nothing had ever happened. He thought he'd feel something then, rage, jealousy, pain. But all he felt was emptiness. Until the message arrived. "Hey Dad. Can we talk?" It was Ethan. The first text in nearly 2 years. Daniel stared at it for a long time. His hands trembled slightly as he typed back, "Sure." When they met at a cafe on the edge of town. Ethan looked older now. Broader shoulders, a beard, the same blue eyes as his mother. But what struck Daniel most was the hesitation in his son's face, like a boy unsure if he was welcome in his own father's world. They talked about work, about Lily graduating, about Sarah's new life. Then Ethan's tone softened. "Mom's not doing well," he said quietly. "She's sick." Daniel's chest tightened. What kind of sick? Breast cancer. Stage 3. The world blurred for a moment. He hadn't spoken to her in years, hadn't even heard her voice since the divorce hearing. Yet now, the thought of her suffering twisted something deep inside him. Not love, not forgiveness, but something raw and human that refused to die completely. Ethan reached across the table. "She's been asking about you." Daniel's heart pounded. "Why?" "She says she made mistakes. That she's sorry for everything. She wants to see you, and Lily and I. We were hoping maybe we could all." He stopped. Daniel looked away, the words echoing in his head. All these years they'd sided against him. All these years they'd chosen her story over his truth. And now they wanted to reconnect. The question lingered, heavy as the rain that had once fallen the night his marriage ended. Could he open that door again? He didn't answer right away. He just stared out the window, watching the clouds move across the pale gray sky, the same sky that had watched him crumble, rebuild, and learn to live again. Part 2 would tell what happened when Daniel finally faced the ghosts that never truly left. 2 weeks passed before Daniel decided to go. He told himself it wasn't forgiveness pulling him there, only unfinished business, a need to face what was left of the wreckage instead of letting it haunt him from the shadows. The drive to her town felt endless. The road wound through fog-draped hills, the sky overcast, air damp with the smell of rain-soaked earth. Every mile carried a strange weight, memories pressing against his ribs like ghosts begging to be remembered. He parked outside the small white house Ethan had texted him the address to. A house that didn't feel like hers. There were flowers along the porch, wind chimes swaying softly, a life built on someone else's love. When he knocked, it was Lily who opened the door. She looked startled, eyes rimmed red, hair tied in a loose bun that reminded him painfully of Sarah in her 20s. For a second neither spoke. Then she whispered, "Dad," and threw her arms around him. The hug was tentative, unfamiliar, like a memory half reconstructed. Inside, the air was warm, filled with the faint scent of chamomile tea. Ethan stood by the window, phone in hand, glancing up with a small nod. "She's in her room," he said quietly. Daniel hesitated at the door. His heart pounded hard enough to feel in his throat. The last time he'd seen Sarah, her face was calm but cold, a stranger's mask worn over the woman he once loved. Now, when he stepped inside her room, what he saw wasn't that woman at all. She was lying on a recliner, thinner than he remembered, her hair cropped short, her skin pale. The tubes and beeping machines surrounding her seemed foreign in the soft light of the room. Her eyes opened slowly, and when they met his, for the first time in years, they softened with recognition. "Daniel," she whispered. His throat tightened. "Hey!" A long silence stretched between them. Years of unspoken words, unshed tears, unsent apologies all trapped in that small space. "I didn't think you'd come," she said. "I wasn't sure I would." A weak smile flickered across her lips. "You always were honest." He didn't know how to respond. He just stood there, hands in his jacket pockets, staring at the woman who'd once been his entire world and then his greatest wound. She gestured faintly toward the chair beside her. "Sit with me." He did. For a while neither spoke. The only sound was the soft hum of the monitor and the rain starting up again outside, gentle against the windowpane. Then she said, "I owe you the truth before I go." He looked at her, uncertain. "I told the kids that I left because you'd stopped caring," she said quietly. "That you didn't want to fix things anymore. But that wasn't true. I left because I was ashamed. Because I couldn't face you after what I did." Her voice broke. James wasn't love. He was escape. From guilt, from failure, from the version of me I couldn't stand to be anymore. You didn't deserve that. Daniel stared at the floor, his chest tightening. "Then why didn't you tell them the truth?" "I wanted them to love me," she whispered. "Even if it meant hating you." He closed his eyes. For a moment he couldn't breathe. The weight of those years, the silence, the blame, the birthdays missed, the distance, all of it had been built on her lie. She reached for his hand, her fingers trembling. "I'm sorry. I've been sorry every day since." He didn't pull away, but he didn't hold on either. Outside, thunder rolled across the sky. Finally he said, "Do they know?" She nodded. "I told them last week. That's why they reached out. I needed them to see what I did. To you. To us." The room grew still. Then she looked at him, really looked, and whispered, "Can you forgive me?" He stared at her, at the woman who'd once promised forever and shattered it in 6 months. Forgiveness. Such a simple word, yet so impossibly heavy. He wanted to say yes, to give her peace before she left this world. But another voice inside whispered that forgiveness wasn't his duty. It was something she had to find within herself. He stood slowly, his heart aching. "I don't know if forgiveness is what you need from me," he said softly. "But I hope you find peace." Her eyes glistened. "That's enough." He left her house under a darkening sky, the rain following him all the way home. 3 months later, the call came on a quiet morning. Sarah was gone. The funeral was small. Lily and Ethan asked him to come, and though part of him wanted to refuse, he went. Not out of love, but out of respect for the life they'd once built together. After the service, Ethan approached him, eyes filled with guilt. "She told us everything before she passed," he said. "About how she twisted things. About how much you tried." Daniel nodded silently. Lily's voice trembled. "We were so cruel to you, Dad. We didn't understand." For the first time in years they called him Dad without hesitation. But the old wounds didn't vanish just because truth had finally surfaced. They wanted to visit him again to make up for lost years. They spoke of family dinners, of reconnecting, of rebuilding. And Daniel listened quietly. Then, with a deep breath, he said the words that had lived inside him for too long. "I'm glad you know the truth. But I'm not the same man anymore. The person you remember, the one waiting at the table every night, the one who kept hoping. He doesn't exist now. You have your lives, and I have what's left of mine. Let's not pretend we can go back." Ethan's eyes widened. "Dad." "I'm not angry," Daniel said, his voice steady but raw. "I just can't start again from a place that never really existed." They stood there in silence, the wind rustling through the trees, carrying away the last traces of what once was. When Daniel walked away, he didn't look back. For the first time in a decade, he felt something like peace. Not because the pain was gone, but because he'd finally stopped trying to rewrite it. As he reached his car, he looked up at the gray sky and whispered to no one in particular, "Goodbye, Sarah." A single ray of sunlight broke through the clouds, falling across the wet grass like a quiet blessing. He smiled faintly, got into his car and drove home, not to the life that had been stolen from him, but to the one he'd finally claimed for himself.